Right, let's expand on this to share the Communication Workers Union's perspective on how the Post Office got to this point. We're joined now by CWU National Bargaining Coordinator Nathan Bowers. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Thousands of employees have essentially been dealt a major blow. The funding application has been denied, but we knew that this is a matter that could have swayed either way. But of course, a disappointing outcome. What's your reaction?
We are very disappointed as the Communication Workers Union that workers were called back yesterday and today they are dismissed. Now, we at the Communication Workers Union want to say that the government must take responsibility for this. We have met with two ministers. The Minister of Labour and Employment, Comrade Tulas, and the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. In that meeting, it was agreed that we will get the funding from TERS. Now, of course, we went to the adjudication committee. We were grilled for over 3 hours, and we put our position quite clear. And one of the most important conditions they put to us was that the retrenchment letters needs to be withdrawn, and that was done by the BRP. But unfortunately, these two ministers have renegated on our agreement, and they must take the full responsibility. But as the Communication Workers Union, we know there are certain forces at play here in our country, people who want to make the post office redundant so that private companies can then come into that space and make their monies. Now, even the president of this country, Cyril Ramaphosa, must also take the responsibility for what has gone down. But we, as the CWU, we are not going to take this lying down. As we are talking, comrades are speaking in their various committees so that we are able to bring this thing to the streets. Because we are defending the South African Post Office, which belongs to the people of this country, and Gogos who do not know how to use emails, they are dependent on the Post Office. And also, we are saying, how can this have happened on the 1st of May, May Day, where workers are the people who makes the post office go, makes the post office run. We are asking the South African public to come to our aid, to assist us, so that as the people of South Africa, we reclaim the South African Post Office, but government is out of order.
Nathan, let me just weigh in here and perhaps ask you this question. My understanding is that even if the relief was indeed obtained, it would have been a temporary measure. What purpose would it have effectively served?
No, you're correct. It's a temporary employee relief fund. However, we have discussed with government that they need to make the South African Post Office a preferred supplier to government, where the state empowers the state, so that national government, provincial government, and local government gives business to the South African Post Office. So if that comes to play, then of course workers would then sustain their jobs beyond the 1 year. But over and above that, we have made proposals to say that seeing that the post office is digitalizing according to international best practice, it would then get the National Skills Authority, who has got billions of rands, to train and retrain the workers in order to run the South African Post Office. So there is no question about this. This is not a scam. We have agreed with government, and they have agreed with us and the BRP. But now, all we see is that on the 1st of May, workers don't have jobs.
And how are workers feeling about this outcome? More so because they had seen the move to tap into support for the UIF's temporary employment relief scheme as a last resort.
Correct. Remember, the South African Post Office did not pay the UIF for years. They owed UIF 113 million. Then what began the discussions with government? Government agreed. If the BRP writes a letter which says acknowledgement of debt, then the scheme would go into play. So BRP did exactly that. However, now we understand that something that was a political act, it was a political act for the ministers just to say they must give us this money. Now they are not giving us this money, and workers and their families are now devastated. They are traumatized, and we are telling the government we are going to go to the streets for tests in defense of the workers and their families.
And very lastly, I mean, we know that the business model of the post office in its current form is no longer fit for purpose. I mean, for years, there's been a lot of talk of a drastic overhaul, but it now points to another example of a failed state-owned enterprise that has not been able to transform to deal with an increasingly competitive environment. I know workers have constantly complained of not being heard. What happens now? What are the next moves?
Remember, the BRP plan, the plan of the BRP, which speaks to the question of digitalization of the post office, bringing it online in line with international best practice. So there is no question about that. However, we are saying that the post office needs to bring back the workers as in yesterday. The tariff needs to kick in, and then we are able to train the workers so that they are able to take the South African Post Office to what it is supposed to be.
Okay, very well. Thank you so much. Let's perhaps leave it there for now. We do apologize for the quality of that line, but speaking there to Nathan Bowers, who is the spokesperson of the CWU, talking to us there about the reaction on the impact of this decision being denied, of course, insofar as access to that funding when it comes to the hopes of the post workers now dashed.